1. The hospital whispers. It was a calm and silent night, the clock striking 2 a.m., its chime echoing through the empty hallways of St. Lorian's downtown hospital. Sarah, a diligent nurse with honey-brown hair tied up neatly, found herself in the eerily quiet pediatric wing. She adjusted the stethoscope around her neck, taking a deep breath. The normally bustling corridors seemed more like long stretches of haunting silence now. With her fellow nurse calling in sick, Sarah was the lone sentinel for the children that evening. It wasn't a particularly heavy load, with only a few patients admitted, but the responsibility weighed on her. Every so often, she had to check the vitals, ensuring the soft beeping of the monitors remained steady and administering medicine where needed. The dim lighting, combined with the soft hum of the air conditioning, gave the place an otherworldly feel. As she went from room to room, the soft glow of the monitors illuminated the innocent faces of the children, all in deep slumber. Sarah was almost lost in her routine when she heard it. Faint whispers. Pausing, she tilted her head, trying to discern where it was coming from. It was an oddity, considering all the children were fast asleep, their breathing patterns not matching the sound she heard. The whispers sounded like a child's voice, murmuring softly, but unintelligibly. Curiosity piqued. Sarah decided to follow the sound. The whispers led her to room 307, a room at the very end of the corridor. What was unusual was that room 307 had been empty for the night. There were no admissions there. She hesitated for a moment outside the door, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Taking a deep breath, she turned it slowly and peered inside. The room was bathed in the pale blue light of the moon. In the center stood a small bed, and on it was a child's toy, a little stuffed bear with a worn-out red body. Its eyes seemed to gleam in the dim light. As Sarah approached, she heard it clearly now. The toy was whispering. Over and over, it murmured a phrase, "I don't want to be alone." Sarah's heart raced. She felt an icy chill run down her spine, the weight of the room pressing down on her. She quickly left the room, closing the door behind her, her breathing heavy and fast. Determined to understand what just happened, Sarah headed to the nurse's station. She pulled out the file of past admissions to room 307 and began leafing through it. After a few minutes, she found a notable entry from a few years ago. A little girl named Lily had been admitted to that room, diagnosed with a terminal illness. Lily had a favorite toy, a stuffed bear with a red body. She had tragically passed away one night, her last words being, "I don't want to be alone." Sarah felt a pang of sorrow. She realized the whispers were probably the echoes of Lily's last moments, her attachment to her toy, and her fear of loneliness. With newfound determination, Sarah went back to room 307. She gently picked up the toy and placed it in the small memorial section of the hospital, meant for children who had passed away there. The night continued, and the whispers ceased. Sarah felt a sense of peace, hoping that wherever Lily was, she felt comforted. As dawn broke, Sarah's shift ended. She headed home, her steps lighter, reflecting on the mysterious and heart-wrenching events of the night. She knew she'd never forget the whispers of room 307, a testament to the bond between a child and her cherished toy. 2. The library's past. The grand clock tower in the center of the town struck midnight, its resonant chimes echoing through the labyrinthine corridors of the ancient Whitmore Library. Mark, a middle-aged librarian with salt and pepper hair, sat amidst a sea of old manuscripts, engrossed in cataloging them. The soft glow of his desk lamp illuminated the faded pages, casting long shadows across the room. Tonight, Mark had stumbled upon an intriguing find, a worn-out diary dating back to the 1800s. Its leather cover was cracked, and its pages yellowed with age. As he delicately turned the pages, he was transported to another era, reading the musings and daily accounts of its author, a young woman named Clara. The library was silent, save for the occasional rustle of paper and the distant ticking of the grand clock. Mark was alone, enjoying the solitude that the late hours brought. The historical section of the library had always fascinated him, and tonight's discovery was a treasure. However, As he delved deeper into the diary, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. A cold draft swept through. Despite all the windows being closed, Mark shivered, pulling his cardigan tighter around him. He attributed it to the age of the building and continued reading. But then, inexplicably, the pages of the diary began to flutter, turning rapidly on their own. Mark's heart raced, and he held the diary down, looking around to find the source of the disturbance. Before he could make sense of it, a passage caught his eye. It was written in a hurried scrawl. The ink smudged in places. "I'm hiding in the library. He's after me. The shadows feel safer, but I can hear his footsteps. If someone finds this, please know that I try to escape." Mark felt a lump form in his throat. The urgency in Clara's writing was palpable. He wondered what had transpired all those years ago. As he pondered, a new sound broke the silence. Soft, echoing footsteps. They seemed distant at first, but grew louder, as if approaching him. Panic surged through Mark. He quickly extinguished his lamp and hid behind a tall bookshelf, clutching the diary to his chest. The footsteps continued, growing closer, until they stopped right in front of the desk he had been working at. A long, tense silence followed. Minutes felt like hours. Eventually, the footsteps receded, fading into the distance. Mark waited for what felt like an eternity before daring to emerge. The room was just as he had left it, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. With a newfound determination, Mark decided to delve into the town's records the next morning. He was certain there was a story behind Clara's diary. Research revealed a chilling tale. Clara had been pursued by a suitor whose advances she had rejected. One fateful night, she had sought refuge in the library, but her fate remained a mystery. As she disappeared without a trace, Mark felt a deep connection to Clara's story. He decided to create a special exhibit in the library, dedicating it to Clara and the unsolved mysteries of the town's past. The diary took center stage, a testament to a young woman's courage in the face of danger. As the days turned to weeks, patrons visited the exhibit, and Clara's story became a talking point in the town. The library, once a silent guardian of history, became a beacon, shedding light on the shadows of the past. Mark often found himself reflecting on that eerie night. While the footsteps remained an enigma, he felt a sense of satisfaction in giving Clara's story the recognition it deserved. The Whitmore Library stood tall, not just as a repository of books, but as a witness to the tales that unfolded within its walls. 3. The abandoned office floor. The towering edifice of the Valmont Corporate Building rose above the city, its many windows reflecting the shimmering moonlight. At 3 a.m., the building was a silent monolith, save for the occasional hum of the elevators and the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. Jenna, a young security guard with raven black hair and a vigilant demeanor, was in the midst of her rounds. The weight of her boots echoed in the marble-floored lobby as she began her ascent. Jenna was well acquainted with most of the floors, from the bustling marketing department to the high-powered executive suites. But tonight, her patrol route included a floor she wasn't familiar with, the 13th floor, which had been abandoned due to pending renovations. It was a place of old legends and whispered rumors among the building staff. As she reached the 13th floor, the elevator doors slid open to reveal a scene frozen in time. Dust-covered desks, overturned chairs, and stacks of yellowing paperwork littered the space. The windows, grimy with neglect, allowed faint moonlight to seep in, casting eerie shadows that danced with the flickering overhead lights. Jenna's radio crackled to life, her colleague's voice lighthearted. "Heard you're checking out the ghost floor tonight. Watch out for the phantom fax machine," he teased. Jenna rolled her eyes, chuckling. "Very funny, Mike," she replied, adjusting her flashlight. Walking through the deserted expanse, Jenna felt an unsettling stillness. It was as if the floor held memories of the bustling activity it had once witnessed. Just as she was reminiscing about the tales she'd heard, an unexpected sound jolted her, the distinct ring of a landline phone. She froze, her heart pounding. The floor was abandoned. The phone lines were supposedly disconnected. Yet the ringing persisted, echoing eerily through the vast emptiness. Curiosity overcoming her initial fear, Jenna followed the sound, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The ringing led her to a corner office, the door slightly ajar. Hesitating for a moment, she mustered the courage to push the door open. On the desk sat an old-fashioned phone, its receiver shaking slightly with each ring. Jenna approached slowly, her hand trembling as she picked up the receiver. The line was silent for a moment before a hushed voice spoke. "Is anyone there? Please, I need help." Jenna's grip tightened on the receiver. "Who is this?" she demanded, trying to mask her rising panic. Before the voice could reply, a shadow darted across the room's window. Jenna whipped around, her flashlight beam catching a fleeting glimpse of a figure disappearing down the hallway. Dropping the receiver, she gave chase, radioing for backup. The pursuit was a blur of adrenaline and fear. Jenna followed the shadowy figure through the maze-like corridors, her determination unwavering. Just as she felt she was closing in, the figure vanished into a stairwell. Panting, Jenna approached cautiously, her senses on high alert. But the stairwell was empty, the only sound being her own labored breathing. Confused and shaken, Jenna made her way back to the office where the phone call had originated. To her surprise, she found a framed photograph on the floor, which hadn't been there before. Picking it up, she saw a black and white image of a young man, his face familiar. The next morning, Jenna delved into the building's archives. The photograph led her to a story from decades ago. The young man was an executive who had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. His last known location, his office on the 13th floor. The story sent shivers down Jenna's spine. The phone call, the shadowy figure, and the photograph all pointed to a haunting past that the building had tried to forget. Word of Jenna's eerie encounters spread throughout the building. The 13th floor became a topic of hushed conversations and wide-eyed wonder. Some dismissed it as mere rumors, while others believed it was the spirit of the lost executive, still seeking help. Jenna, forever changed by that night, found a renewed respect for the stories held within the walls of the Valmont building. While she never experienced another encounter on the 13th floor, she often found herself reflecting on the thin line that separates the living from the echoes of the past. The abandoned office floor remained a testament to the mysteries that time often conceals but occasionally reveals. 4. The radio station's last show. In the heart of the small town of Ravensbrook, the fading neon sign of WRLK radio station flickered against the backdrop of the night. Inside, amidst walls lined with vinyl records and vintage posters, sat Leo, a seasoned radio host, with deep-set eyes and graying hair. Tonight was special, yet somber. It was the final show before WRLK would sign off forever, a casualty of changing times and evolving technologies. Leo, with his mellifluous voice, had been the heart and soul of WRLK for decades. He had seen the station through its golden years, narrating stories, playing songs, and connecting with listeners. Tonight, he hoped to relive some of that magic one last time. The studio was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the warm glow of the broadcasting equipment. As the clock neared midnight, Leo leaned into the microphone, his voice heavy with nostalgia. "Good evening, Ravensbrook. It's your old friend Leo, here to take you on one final journey down memory lane." He reminisced about the past, sharing anecdotes and playing old classics that had once echoed through the homes of Ravensbrook. The phone lines were open, and many called in to share their memories, their voices thick with emotion. As the night wore on, a peculiar call came through. The line crackled with static, and the voice on the other end was distorted, almost otherworldly. "Leo," it whispered menacingly, drawing out his name. Leo, taken aback, responded, "Who's this?" Instead of answering, the voice began recounting events from Leo's past, some joyous, others dark secrets he had never shared. The voice taunted him, mentioning incidents from years ago, things only Leo would know. A cold dread settled in Leo's heart. Suddenly, the lights in the studio began to dim and flicker. The equipment buzzed with static, and the temperature dropped sharply. The voice continued its eerie taunts, growing more sinister with each word. Leo, gripping the edges of his desk, tried to maintain his composure. In a moment of realization, Leo recalled an old tape that had been sent to the station years ago. It was from a disgruntled listener, disgraced publicly on one of Leo's segments, who had sworn revenge. Could it be? Was this his doing? Mustered with newfound determination, Leo addressed the voice. I don't know who you are or what you want, but WRLK has been a beacon of hope and joy for this town. You won't take away our final night. The line went silent for a moment before the voice responded. Softer now, almost sad. All I wanted was to be heard, Leo, just like everyone else. And with that, the connection was severed. The equipment returned to normal, the lights brightened, and the chilling atmosphere lifted. Leo, shaken but resolute, took a deep breath. Apologies for that interruption, dear listeners. Some ghosts from the past are harder to shake than others. The remainder of the night went smoothly. Calls poured in, stories were shared, and music filled the airwaves. As dawn approached, Leo, with tears in his eyes, signed off for the last time. Thank you, Ravensbrook, for the memories, the laughter, and the love. This is Leo, signing off from WRLK. Keep the music alive in your hearts. The sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over the town. The radio station, now silent, stood as a testament to the power of connection and the voices that yearned to be heard. Leo left the station, the weight of years of broadcasting heavy on his shoulders. As he walked into the sunrise, he reflected on the night's events, realizing that every voice, no matter how lost or hurt, just seeks understanding. And with that, the era of WRLK radio station came to an end, leaving behind echoes of melodies, stories, and a town forever changed by the magic of radio. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Dark Tales Unleashed channel for more such content.